Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. Farmer Sara Patterson of Red Acre Farm in Cedar City, Utah, is my guest on today's episode. Sara was just 14 years old when she started her first CSA on her parents' land after they moved to Utah from LA. Now, 15 years later, she has built Red Acre Farm into a thriving one-acre certified organic farm with a year-round full diet CSA, farm stand, farm kitchen, and farm stay, along with hosting farm dinners, workshops, and other community events. She also founded the Utah Farm and Food Conference, now in its 8th year, and with her mom established the Red Acre Center for Food and Agriculture, a nonprofit with a focus on farmer education and advocating for farmers at the state level. Since 2015, she and her mom have worked together to pass more than 19 bills directly related to small agriculture and artisan producers in Utah. Sara is a powerhouse of energy and drive to make small-scale farming and local food accessible to all in her community and to inspire others to do the same. Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. Our same-day shipping can help keep your planting schedules on track when the unexpected happens. We're here to help you grow good food. Turning to Johnny's means you can plant high-quality, trial-proven varieties with confidence and know that our expert staff is ready to help with first-hand knowledge, because we've grown them ourselves. This episode is also brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses. Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse investment. Visit rimmel.com today. All right, enjoy the show. Hello, Sara. Welcome to the Winter Growers Podcast. Today I have Sara Patterson from Red Acre Farm CSA in Utah. Hello, Sara.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's so great to have you. You farm in an area of the country that I am fairly familiar with, at least for the climate. Utah is very arid, dry. I think you're at 5,900 feet in elevation, and the farm I had in Colorado was 6,200 feet. So I'm pretty familiar with some of the conditions that you are dealing with out there. And you have this really unique farm, and I'm really fascinated by your story and by your setup. Not only, are you doing sort of no-till methods, but you're doing a year-round full diet CSA. You have a farm stand, you have a farm kitchen, you do a farm stay, and you have this whole other nonprofit that you started with your mom called Red Acre Farm or Red Acre Center. And you just are doing an incredible amount of work in the farming world. So I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I've been wanting to be on here. I think we've been trying to connect for a while. So it's exciting to be on here and be able to have this conversation. So
yeah. And we first met, we just figured out it was 7 years ago at the MOA farming conference. I think that was in Kansas City or somewhere in the Midwest.
Yeah, it was. I think it was in Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah. And I distinctly remember meeting you because you came up, you were with your mom and I was with my dad and we were both speaking at that conference. And I remember you both came up and you were like super excited and, you felt a little nervous about introducing yourself, but you were both very, confident and bold and, said you had just, had this farm in Utah and you were just really wanting to do year-round production. And it was just really sweet and wonderful. And, in the past 7 years, you've grown so much and are just really a powerhouse out there. So great to have you again.
It was really exciting meeting you guys. Your dad is like one of my farmer heroes. So,
oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I'm sure we have plenty to talk about in terms of farming with a parent or family. as you probably know, it's both a blessing and a curse, right?
For sure, for sure.
I'd love for you to get started with just explaining a little bit more about your background and some of the story with the farm and the property that you're on, and how integral it's been a part of your family, even though both of your parents didn't have a farming background specifically.
Yeah. So I moved from Los Angeles area, California, when I was 10 to Utah. My mom didn't want to raise any more kids in Los Angeles. Everyone's like, why did you move? My mom's like, California. And she just it was more of a pit stop really for our family. We didn't know where we were going to end up. It was still close enough that we could get back to my grandpa, who was older. And, moving, we bought 1 acre, and I thought that we had 100 acres moving from California. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can do anything. So 2 years after living here at 12 is when I started my garden, and we're in a college town. So I started selling to, university students and professors, and just radishes. I think that's all I could really grow. I know the first time I ever we planted in April or even earlier, and it froze, and then whatever didn't freeze, the red ants ate. So the first time that I actually got anything, I was so excited. And then my mom's dear friend for her master's project had started a CSA in Nevada. And I just loved that concept and watching her do that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And my parents were more than willing to let me use their land and, kind of do whatever I wanted for the most part. But I didn't have a lot of, money for infrastructure or anything. So the CSA sounded like a really great way to get money up front to be able to start a CSA. So at 14 is when I told my mom, or I didn't tell my mom actually. I got her assistant to make me a flyer. And I sold 4 shares, and I think it's the most I've still ever charged, because I just took my friend's pricing, who was delivering to Las Vegas, and just kind of copied it. So I'm just charge whatever she was charging at the time, which I probably should have thought, rural area. I'm not anyway. So I wasn't driving or anything, and I was like, guess what? I have 4 CSA members, and we're delivering. I think I actually had 5. My mom's like, you did what? You took money from who? But that was kind of the beginning. And it was just the summer season, because we have a 60 to 90 day growing season. And so we just did those few baskets, and I loved it. And it was really great. And so my mom's like, hey, if you're serious about this and you want to do this, she was in between jobs. And so she kind of quit her job and started helping me the next season, full time. And then we started doing farmers markets. Our farmers market, the closest one was 45 minutes away, a little over, in Zion. So we were driving to Zion, which was beautiful, but, just a long ways. And then we started doing another market. So my mom would get up Saturday morning. She would drive 45 minutes to drop me off in St. George. And then she would drive another 45 minutes to Zion, because it started earlier. My market started earlier. And then she'd drive back the 45 and the 45. So she was driving pretty close to 3.5 to 4 hours every Saturday to do these markets, because I had no license. So needless to say, we weren't getting a lot of sleep. And that is when the next year my mom came to me, because my dad would come. He was still doing construction in California and kind of coming back on the weekends, and he would help whenever he could, putting watering systems in. We had nothing, and I didn't really know anything either. And, the organic grower was really my Bible at that point, because this was close to 15, 16 years ago. And there weren't all these amazing books that there are now. There wasn't the backyard, all of these books that are out, you couldn't get then. And so my mom came to me and said, if you think you can cover all of the bills for, our family, and can cover all of the expenses, then you can have Dad and me full time. And that was kind of the beginning of our family's farming journey. Was at age 16 is how old I was, is when it became our family's sole source of income, and has been ever since, which is kind of crazy. But now when I look back at it, I'm like, I don't know if I would do that, It's like the fact that I had parents that were willing to buy into me and believe in me and like let me kind of follow my dream, and being young and naive is really a beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, well, first of all, it's impressive because I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you were doing school simultaneously, with some of this, right?
So I was luckily homeschooled, so I could do this, and farm. And so this kind of became my education in a lot of ways. And I mean, running a business and, supporting your family is a very good way to get an education quickly. But yeah, so I think that was something that was a great opportunity for me, is the fact that I was homeschooled, that I could do this and have the time and be able to schedule it in for sure. So,
yeah. And I love the combination too of, having that youthful sort of energy and, in many ways, sort of naivete about what you were getting into, combined with, your parents' sort of wisdom and ability to kind of temper it, probably. So, such a great combination to be able to do that together, and a winning one, obviously. So.
Yeah. Well, we're still here.
Yes. And gosh, you've grown so much too. I mean, when I was like taking notes, writing down all the things that you've been involved with ever since, it's just incredible how you have enough hours in the day to cover everything. Well, and then, okay, so now I'm curious about the full diet CSA approach. When did that sort of become part of your business model? How early on, and how has it evolved over the years?
Yeah, so we did the kind of more traditional CSA for the first few years. We started growing on a quarter acre, even though we had more land, or not more land, but we had an acre. We started growing on a quarter acre, and we were doing about 40 CSA baskets from that quarter acre. And then we built one high tunnel, and during the winter, because ever since like year 2 of doing the CSA, we were doing a year round. But because we didn't have enough high tunnels that we had during outside space, we would have to get rid of, all of our shareholders except for like 10. And then when we got another high tunnel, it was like, okay, now I can take, because, it's just, when you're growing during winter, it's like this fear of like, okay, is it going to freeze? Like, we think we know what we're doing and, we see this working, but, there's always that fear factor, and there's no one else that you can, go and be like, okay, I had, not a great harvest of tomatoes. Can I get some extra from you? Because, during the CSA, during the summer, you see like other farms and stuff sharing, and, people will supply stuff. And this was only my really 4th year of growing. And so, then I bought another acre, and so we were doing that. But the full diet kind of came around when, because you could add on eggs, and you could add on meat, and you could add on, flowers, and we had all these add-ons, and it was just really becoming like so much to be like, okay, do you get this week, or is it an every other week add-on? And like forgetting and remembering, and then they'd send their spouse, and it got to the point where I was like, this is just so like much to handle. And we live in a town of like 30,000 people, and the average income is around 30,000 at the time. And I was like counting like the turnover, because, CSAs have a good amount of turnover. And I was like, by the time that I'm like 40 or 50, I will have gone through the whole town. And I was like, this isn't sustainable. Like, this can't, like every person that watches Food Inc. or What the Fork or whatever it is, or, that decides that it's fun to join a CSA for a season and then is like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go back to, eating the way I have been. Anyway, so this was kind of the catalyst to turning it into the full diet and having people sign up. So they sign up in March, and then they go through the entire year until March. So they're eating with us for the full year, and then it's priced per person, and the whole household has to sign up. And they get everything they need to feed their family for that week. So there's no set amount. Like we go out and harvest what we have available. We have tags that we're like, you can like put this in every single thing you eat this week. And we will, like still have, more left. Or we have like, this is all there is for this week. So, don't plan on it being like your main thing in your meals this week. Like if it's asparagus or whatever, by the end, it's normally plentiful enough that no one even wants it. Like tomatoes in the beginning, everyone's like counting them. And by the end, we can't even give the boxes away fast enough. So, but that was kind of what we started doing. And it's been so amazing because we only need 40 people because they're actually eating from the farm. Like they get their protein. We have milk animals because we use the manure for compost. So we provide raw milk for them, goat and cow, all of their eggs. We work with a grain farmer. So they're really eating from the farm, and they're eating more like the farmer, when you're a farmer, you can get everything. And it's a beautiful thing to have this community. And our shareholders are now like friends. Like they go over to each other's, for dinner, and so we've created kind of this like niche for our community. And it's been a really beautiful thing. And I think, and everyone comes to the farm to pick up, which is something that they're really connected. Like some of the kids that come, it's like, it's their farm, which is something that I love and that I have always wanted because we don't have a lot of land, and I want to really connect and feed people, not just like supplement, or be like a fun thing that they try. So anyway, that was a long explanation, but that's our full diet.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's an amazing program. And I'm curious, what is the average cost then per week for a family? What does that work out to be?
It's right around $90 per adult. And then it's like 10%. Okay. Yeah, it's like 10% if there's a second for every additional person. Like because when people eat together, we end up spending less actually. And then we feed kids under 5 for free. And then there's also a youth price. So it's kind of, we have a calculator because it gets a little complicated, but it's working, and it's been good for families. We also do different diets. So people who are, vegan or, paleo or whatever. In one family, you can have someone that has 5 different, like one kid decides to become a vegan. The dad's doing his paleo diet. The mom's just trying to make food for the family, And so this way they can each get their own diet and still eat from the farm. Because we're like, we can feed you no matter what you're eating. Like we grow enough, of all of these things that we can feed you.
And so each person will then just say, this is what my preference is. And then you just adjust the pricing accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so great. And then, you said it was a weekly pickup and it's a year commitment so they have to commit for a year. And then after a year, they can decide to not do it again or renew.
Yeah.
And then do you have a wait list at this point? Are you full up on your members?
We have had a wait list we've had a wait list. We don't take everyone. That's the thing, is not everyone fits. Like there are people that come and they're like, I want to do this. And we kind of almost have like a checkout for both of us because it's like, you're committing to eat from the farm for a year, which is a huge commitment. And that's a big money commitment too. Like you're choosing to put, your substantial amount of your food dollars towards us, which is a huge commitment for them. And we're committing to feed you for a year, which is a large commitment for us because, farming is not always a smooth road. And so we have a checkout where we meet the people, they come to a share day. We show them what it's going to be. We say, do you think you can actually cook from this? Like, you're going to have to wash vegetables. Like, it's a full day after you get your CSA to process and put away everything. And you're eating nose to tail because we butcher one cow and then you're doing it. And so, we don't take everyone. So could we have a waiting list? Could we have more people? Probably, but it's not, I feel like it's better to have the right people then have more people. And I'd rather go sell at a farmer's market or sell more in our farm stand and keep the people that we have really committed and wanting to be a part of the farm.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I even saw on your website, you have a, is this for you sort of question checklist.
Yeah.
And it was actually really helpful, to go through those questions and, think in my head, yes, no. So that I think probably is a great preliminary tester to see who is right, who is the right fit.
Right. Yeah. And we're still in our community is still in the education stage. Like, we're still teaching them what CSAs are. Like, when I first started, someone asked me if it started for Confederate States of America. I'm like, okay, let's back up. Like, no, community supported agriculture, so we're in, we're still in that learning curve. But we're getting, we have come a long way for sure. The movement in general has come a long way. We didn't have a growing year-round podcast or winter podcast. There was no no-till this. I feel like the community and the movement has changed so much, and there's so much more support all around, from consumers to farmers to growers, which has been amazing to watch.
Yeah. And I also, it looks like from looking at the product offerings that you have, you've really diversified too, to try to make it more friendly. So there might be prepared foods, for instance. Is that something you are including on occasion?
So we don't, we don't include prepared foods in our CSA every week. That's just like raw, produce and stuff. Okay. We will make bread on occasion if I'm feeling inspired. But we do in our farm stands. We have a commercial kitchen, and any excess, we do value added items, and then they get a discount off of the prepared food that we make. So, which I'm like, why are you getting this? It's the same stuff that I'm making with your stuff. But it is not. I'm like, you're eating the same food out of your share. It's the same stuff. But it's not, people can get something and then they don't have to cook it, and they know that they're still getting something from the farm, which is a nice thing.
Yeah, no, it seems like you're able to satisfy, all the different customer types, the ones that really want to commit, to preparing the food and have that relationship with you. And then also the ones that want to sort of dip their toe in here and there, come to the farm stand, go to the farmer's market. Are you still participate in farmers markets now when you have product? Is that consistent?
Yeah. So we do one farmer's market. We helped start 2 farmers markets. We no longer go to the ones that are kind of in our town, because we have our farm stand, and during COVID and stuff, we were the best farm to kind of step out of that space and just sell from the farm. And we felt like that was better for our community. And then the people that couldn't, that couldn't sell from their farm and kind of had to go. Anyway, we just felt like it was a better thing. So we've kind of changed since then. So we just do one market twice a week. But it was those were some big decisions to make for sure. And going to the full diet model, I wasn't sure if we'd be out of business. I was like, I don't know. Because when we started, I think I charged $40 or $50 a week, and we haven't, and I was like, I hope this works. Because I had read, The Dirty Life years ago, and Kristen Kimball and what they're doing. And I've always wanted to do a sliding scale. We haven't quite gotten that into place. I think it would be something that could be really great. But I've always wanted to do it for years and years and years. And then I finally was like, okay, we're doing this, because I just don't know if we can keep doing the traditional CSA and survive in our community. So,
yeah, no, speaking of Mark and Kristen, they are also going to be guests on this season 5.
How exciting.
So, yeah, but it's just so great to see the 2 different versions of the full diet CSA. Also a reminder, they're producing on over 25 acres. So huge difference. Yeah. You are the micro scale approach, which is great. And I think so needed, because, not everyone's going to be able to do it on the scale that they're doing it at. So, so the vegetable production year round, what typically do you have for your members or your farm stand? what vegetables is kind of what's your focus?
Yeah. So we try to keep roots year round, we always try to have carrots. We always try to have beets. Some of them, it gets to the point where, once the sunlight starts coming back and stuff, you can't keep those carrots in the ground because they start growing again and get better and gross. Your sweet, delicious winter carrots that are the best things ever turn into not the greatest product. So we try to get them out, and then they'll be storage, for a few weeks. But we always have root crops. We try to always have onions, potatoes, carrots, and beets year round. And then, of course, greens, because we are in this climate that we can grow greens year round. They get, all the greens year round. But during the winter, it's kale, chard, all the Asian greens, and Zuna, tatsoi, Tokyo bakana. We do a few different varieties of lettuces, mosh. We don't really do it as much anymore. But yeah, the standard. We can't do broccoli or, some of the winter ones that you'd think. We've kind of played around with some different, bigger things that are hard, green onions we can do, leeks we can do. It's also just space and timing, kohlrabi, we can, if we get it out by before it gets too cold, we can handle fennel. It's one of those ones that doesn't always love it. It just kind of depends on the season. So we'll throw it in there and we're okay, this is just a waste of space. But it's hard because you're planting, in September for this winter harvest. And so you don't really know, you're trying to, so yeah, it's a hard thing to play with, but every year we kind of hone it in a little bit more because Thanksgiving is our big last, when we can kind of do the most. So just trying to get everything in so we can get that push for Thanksgiving when a lot of people are still wanting to buy stuff. And so that is one that we've been trying to hone, but it's getting the summer crops out because you want to hold on to those tomatoes because when you're in the short season, you're oh my gosh, they're finally coming on. We've been waiting all this time. But then it's okay, we have to get them out because if we don't get them out, then we're going to hurt ourselves for the next season and we're going to regret it. But so finding that timing. And for me, I thought it was we just need more high tunnels and then we can do it. And so now we have 8 unheated high tunnels, and then we have one that is our seedling room that we keep all of our seedlings in. But I still have the same problem. So sometimes having more doesn't help. It's just I still don't have enough space. So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, you never do. I mean, what the one thing I'll say, but I know it's not for everyone, but the movable tunnel really does help to mitigate some of those challenges with timing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it works for everyone.
So speaking of the movable tunnel, Clara, I read your dad's book and I was sold and I was I'm doing movable tunnels. So I built one and it blew away 3 times because our wind is so bad. And the third time I was okay, I'm done. One time it just blew, it literally lifted the whole thing up and set it in my neighbor's field. And it was 2 feet from the street. And I ran over there. It was a horrible windstorm. I ran over there. I was probably not even 100 pounds. And I was holding on to it. And my neighbor comes over and he's Sarah, you're just going to blow away with this high tunnel. You're not going to save this. But I was this is my livelihood that just blew away. I was so traumatized. And then the next time it blew on top of my other high tunnel. And then the next time it just completely. And I was okay, I'm done. I can't. So maybe now with new engineering and stuff, and I'm so terrified to try it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's nothing worse than having high tunnels blow away. Yes, I mean, of course, you need to have generally larger structures with really solid anchoring.
Yeah.
And if your winds are that horrible, it just may not be possible to do it safely.
I kind of want to try it again because maybe it just wasn't. Because it was when this was 9, 10, more than that, like 12 years ago now. So it was like basic, I just like read your dad's book, I was like, okay, maybe dead manning. I don't know. I'm like, I'm sure there's better things now with Farmer's Friend and all these things. Like, I'm sure that someone's figured it out, but I'm terrified.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that. Yeah. Well, I did do it successfully with Rimmel movables in Colorado in 2008-9. So it is possible.
Okay.
But it is stressful, especially with high winds. And, I experienced pretty high winds there. But anyway, the timing issues that you speak of, like, I'm always like, oh, but if you had a movable, you could, deal with that, because then you could move it off of the crop, once that crop was done, and then over the, planted in the ground crop. So, but like I said, it's not for everyone. So you've got unheated tunnels, you've got greens production as you can fit it in. And yeah, the Asian greens, I recall those being pretty much impervious to all the frost, freeze, warm cycles. What is kind of the climate like in the winter? Are you getting pretty extreme temperature swings? And
yeah, so because we're in that high desert region, we get super high lows, and then our tunnels, because we have that lovely sun, can be 90 degrees. Yes. So it's like okay, it's -10 at night, and or like zeros at night, and then during the day it will be 80, 90 in the high tunnel, right? Not outside.
Yes. Yep.
But when the sun comes out, those high tunnels heat up so fast. So we're venting. I think that, we just have to vent every day, and we try to keep it cool. But those big swings, because you're like, why is this bolting? It's freezing. Like the arugula is bolting. What is happening? So yeah, it's fun. And it definitely is every year is just a little different, like you're like, oh, I think I have this figured out, because we do like plantings every 2 weeks. And then towards the end, when we start losing light, like we'll start doing them, like one day can make a huge difference. You and your dad, I love the podcast that you and your dad did a while ago. It was like, we tell everyone who's thinking about growing during winter, I'm like, no, you really need to listen to this, because it's true. Like one day when you start losing that light can make can make growing, like weeks later in harvesting. Like it does make a difference. And so like we've been trying to hone like, okay, if we transplant every 2 weeks, if we do it every, but because we like say, okay, this is the week, but we're like, okay, when it really matters, like we have to plant on this day or else we won't get the harvest, on time. So honing it in has been a challenge, but it's definitely like we have spreadsheets and we do everything by the week, and it's getting better and better, but it still is like, we don't have breaks anymore. Like we don't have breaks in the harvest, which is really like we have one crop is, like one succession is ready. Sometimes two will be ready at a time. And we're like, okay, we don't need 50 feet of arugula right now, but it decided to be warmer than it was supposed to. But for us, we're like, we'd rather feed it to our chickens or cows or goats and have it than not have it. And so, or sell it to some, like, hey, guess what? We just did a dinner last week, and we had 3 successions of arugula basically mature at the same time, pretty close. And so I put arugula and everything. I'm like, okay, arugula pesto, arugula chimichurri. We're putting arugula in the last mix. We're putting arugula on the bottom of the meat. I'm like, if you don't like arugula, don't come to this dinner.
Yeah, no, arugula 5 ways, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you just market it as a fancy chef thing.
Right, yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, well, no, I understand that. I mean, I recall how challenging figuring out all of the timing and the sun and the cold, of that arid Mountain West climate.
Yeah.
So, in contrast, farming in the winter back east definitely is more moderated and a little easier to anticipate. But with climate change now, it's like it's throwing a whole nother, wrench in the system, and it's just a constant game of anticipation or trying to anticipate it and then having to modify as you go. So
yeah, for sure.
Definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, but I think growing year round has definitely given us a niche. And I mean, it's really great for like our crew, like to know that they have consistent, it's not like we have to drop everyone, you know what I mean? So like we can carry on, like we're not dropping customers because we can keep them supplied. So it's like, we're not losing our customers every single winter. We're keeping our crew, going every winter. Like it's not, so we can have a more sustainable over time. So even though it's challenging, and even like for some farmers, I know the ones like when we go to Eco Farmer in California, they're like, we just grow during the winter. And even if we break even, it's still worth it just to like keep, to keep that rhythm. Cause I feel like when you start and stop, like when you're just growing during the summer, it's like this big like momentum to get the wheel turning again. And it's like, okay, where is everything? Where are the tools? Let's clean everything out. And so there's like this big start and stop. And when it's just kind of like this perpetual, like it definitely slows down in a way during the winter. Like it's not like the weeding isn't as, weeds still grow, but it's just not as like much. But you still kind of keep this like rhythm going, which I think is something that is valuable for growing during the winter. And even if you're not as successful in the beginning, I think that as you get it more successful and keeping your soil alive and keeping that moisture in there, I think that there's benefits for sure, even if it's challenging. I think that overall the benefits outweigh the challenges for us anyway.
Hey, podcast listeners, we're going to pause for a moment to hear from one of our show sponsors. This episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by BCS America. BCS two-wheel tractors are designed and built in Italy, where small-scale farming has been a way of life for generations. Discover the beauty of BCS on your farm with PTO-driven implements for soil working, shredding cover crops, spreading compost, mowing under fences, clearing snow, and more. All powered by a single gear-driven machine that's tailored to the size and scale of your operation. Tractors and attachments are on sale now. Find sale pricing and your nearest dealer at bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com.
Hey, you all, Farmer Jesse here. So our work has always been about keeping farming information as free and open to the public as we possibly can, and that won't change. One way in which we make that possible, though, is through advertising on podcasts like this, on our YouTube channel, on our forum, and so on. So if you are a small farm-related company selling seeds or tools or something growers could use, or if you're an organization putting on some conference or offering a grant or looking for farmer contributors or something else farm-related that I'm not thinking of, get in touch with us at Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. That's Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Supporting us helps to grow this work and grow farmers. So we all thank you. Again, that email is farmermichelle at no-tillgrowers.com, or you can find our contact information at no-tillgrowers.com. All right. Thanks, y'all. Enjoy the show.
Speaking of never stopping, it seems like you've put your energy into so many other things on top of that. I mean, just like this list I have, you do, workshops on the farm, you do farm dinners, you do breakfast on the farm, you do burgers, bands and bikes events. You have, a whole farm kitchen, certified kitchen. So yeah, I'm really curious about kind of the inspiration for some of those ideas, how you've been able to incorporate them into your business model, which ones have worked the best, which ones have been fails.
Yeah. Which ones have been well, let's start. No, I'm kidding. So one thing is we're a small farm. We're definitely, like I said, we're still on that education boat. And so something like, there are people who can grow amazing food and who can farm way better than me in a lot of ways. But so something that we've always been about is having people on the farm and, letting them see things growing and being open to the community is something. So community events are something that we've always done from the beginning for education. And also we live in a tiny town, and in the beginning, we really couldn't just support ourselves off of, vegetables. And so for us, it was like, okay, we could go get an offsite job or an off-farm job, or we can just figure out how to do something on the farm that makes money, that makes it work. So that was like the catalyst for doing breakfast and for doing these other events was, and you get more people on the farm, and when they come to your farm for a burger, then they'll buy a bag of lettuce, or they'll try your carrots, or they'll be like, oh, you have a farm stand? I'm going to come shopping here, right? But they might not come for the farm stand initially, like, you know, because we don't have that crowd that is just dying for local food. It's definitely changed since COVID for us, for sure. Like, we increased a ton in our farm stand, and every day I'm like, okay, when's it going to stop? When are people going to go back to Walmart? I mean, that's really your choice here. Like, Walmart is the grocery store. So we don't have a Whole Foods. We just got like a natural grocers in the last 2 years, like not even. So it's definitely like there isn't a lot of options. So that was something that we started doing. And that's why I started all of those things, is because I was like, let's make this farm make money. It is 2 acres. We live in a smaller income bracket. And so let's just see what we can do off of the farm. And then once you start it, then it's hard to stop. You know, it's like, I always have more ideas. I'm like, okay. And this year we actually did cut back on some events and some classes, but for me, it's like, oh, it's just always, it's like, seems fun. So I'm like, one more thing to do, you know, like just, I don't know. I always have another idea and another project that I want to start or do. And then I just keep rolling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm overdoing it, but people love it. And it's hard to tell them no. So,
well, and so much of these ideas too seem to come from a real deep love for cooking and preparing foods. Where did that come from for you? You know, what joy do you find from that?
Yes, for sure. I love to cook. So my mom owned a restaurant actually in her 20s. She owned her own restaurant, and she kind of has done food her whole life and catered. And I always said that I would never do food. Like, I hated doing prepared food and like serving it. But I realized that it's a totally different thing when you're growing it and when it's coming from, I mean, like when we do our burgers, the meat is from a rancher that is completely grass-fed and finished. We make our own buns from Utah flour. The ketchup is from our tomatoes. Like the, you know, mayonnaise or aioli is from our chickens and from beautiful safflower oil that I know the farmer. So like everything you're eating like has a story and has something behind it. And for me, that's where I love cooking. Like I love cooking because I feel like you can really tell the story of this food and putting it together and inspiring other people to cook and eat local and to, you know, appreciate the work that these farmers have put behind all of the, you know, the things that they're growing and making. And so definitely my family are foodies. You know, I grew up in kitchens and, you know, peeling garlic at midnight for events and stuff. But for me, the reason why I think I went back to it or why I embraced it more is because I love telling the story of the food and showing people the potential, you know, like you don't have to do a lot. Like it's already beautiful in here. And we've kind of lost that in our culture, you know, like people don't cook anymore. Like they asked me, you know, like we sell our greens in half-pound bags, and it's like, what do I do with all of these greens? And like a half-pound of like greens, like spinach, like it cooks down to nothing. What do you mean? It's like, can I just get a little bit? I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And so that's something that I think just inspiring people to really cook again and eat from the land is something that I try to, you know, do with our cooking. So
yeah, no, I mean, you've got some really great events planned out. I love how your breakfast on the farm it said on your website is the last Saturday of the month, May through September. So you have like consistency with these. People know what to expect. And then the burgers, bands, and bikes through the summer. And you get a local band to play music. And then you get a discount to people if they bike or to the event.
Bike or motor, which is kind of fun because we get like the Harley Davidson crowd. And then we also get like the hippies on their bikes. It's so fun. It's like so great to see those two. You don't see those two very often at the same event, but and we have a vegan burger. So that's a beet burger from our beets. And it's so fun because we have both of you here on the farm sitting underneath the same tree, listening to music. And it's really a fun thing to see those communities come together.
Yeah. So. No, that's so great. I mean, I feel like probably a lot of this is inspired from the Outstanding in the Field farm dinners that you've hosted in the past. Yes.
Yeah. So we started following Jim Donovan when he was a land artist in California. When we lived in California, my dad used to follow him because my dad is an artist. And so and then his cookbook came out and we started following his farm to fork dinners. And then when I started farming, we actually asked him to come when we first started. And then we realized he only does cool farms. We're nobody. We're nobody. And then we actually kind of became friends through Eco Farm and different things. And so when they told us that they were willing to come and do a dinner here, I was you could have told me Madonna was coming and I couldn't have been more excited. I was oh my gosh. So when then they've been back once since, and that was a really great thing to, have what they do is really a great thing for this community. So yeah, definitely inspired our farm to fork dinners. I mean, he really inspired the movement. I love looking at these elders and seeing what they've done and how their ideas and their things have just, blown up. It's so neat to see all of the effort and work that they put in to see the next generation. And I'm so grateful for what they've done so we can do what we do.
Yeah. So. No, Jim is great. And, I had him both out at my farm in Colorado 2 times. And then he's been to Four Season Farm a couple times. So it's definitely quite a scene that the bus, the way they show up and literally just produce this incredible, event within a very short time period is impressive. So
I know it's they never were there. They show up, it's magic, and then they're gone, and you don't even know that they came. You're what?
Yeah. No, it's just
like a dream.
Yeah, or Jim's land art, where it's there one day and then it's gone, right?
Yeah, that's exactly ephemeral. What it is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the bus came last time. It was so exciting.
Oh, good.
The bus made it. It was exciting. So
yes, it's had many times of being broken down.
And
yes. Well, and then also, gosh, then you have this whole side of the Red Acre Center for Food and Ag, which I believe partly was inspired by a need for doing advocacy work in the state level for local food and, sort of the cottage food sort of acts. And can you describe a little bit about how that got started and what specifically you've been able to change on that level?
Yeah. So we started that about 2000, when I met you about 7 years ago, is when we officially started the nonprofit. So it's Red Acre Center for Food and Agriculture. And it kind of started with raw milk. Not that raw milk was the thing that I don't want to be a dairy farmer. It wasn't what I was, going in for, but I just noticed that there was these kind of holes that were missing in direct to consumer farming. And so we kind of marched up to the hill with that beginner's luck, naivety. Who knows? My mom said I couldn't go up there until I could vote. So I was 20 when we went up with our first bill. We got a sponsor and everyone was against it. The ag, the department, the Dairy Association, the Department of Ag, Farm Bureau, there was no one, the Associated Foods, I don't know who was for it except the people. And it ended up being the most talked about bill on the Hill. And it passed the last night of we have a 45-day session. So it passed at 11:49 at night, the last night of the session. And we went home and my dad actually ended up passing away the day that the bill was signed. So the session ends March or right around the 1st of March. And he passed away the 23rd of March. Anyway. And so he So my mom and I were kind of dealing with the loss of losing my business partner, her partner, totally unexpected. And the bill was passed, kind of excited, didn't know if we'd ever do anything again or go back. Our life was just changing. And there were just some things that started getting said and some bills that we saw going up that were like kind of detracting from what we had done. And we're like, what the heck? So instead of just letting them say bad things about it, I marched it to the hill and I was like, what do you mean? Like, we didn't do this, because I hadn't signed up for like the herd share that I had done, because I just had a lot of things change in my life and paperwork was not like the top thing that I was thinking of. Anyway, so I realized that there was no one on the hill in our capital that was speaking for these small farmers, and that if we didn't do something about this, they were just going to roll us over, and or not that intentionally, but almost, they just weren't, there was no one up there speaking for them. And so that's when we started the center and when we started passing these bills. And we've done over 19. It's the legislative session right now. My mom's in committee. I'm home just for a minute, but I'll be headed back up to Salt Lake to be on the Hill. So our winter season, like when things are normally slower, we spend the 45 days up in Salt Lake. So we've done things like anything that's produced and made on your farm, you can sell uninspected, unregulated. It just needs to have a label. And that's so people that are younger, or if you're not sure if you want to start this business or whatever, can start. And then, if you're going to become bigger, you're going to get a commercial kitchen. You're going to get the equipment that you need. You're going to get all of that things. But it's just kind of creating this space for people to start a farm, or to start, milking cows, or to start selling vegetables, or whatever it is, at a level that you can start. Because all the ranchers and farmers, here are generational, have had the land forever. And I'm like, we just want the same chance that your grandpa had. It's like, you land, the stats in this state is we're decreasing in farmland, but we're increasing in farmers, right? And it's because there are more people getting into it, but they're not farming the way that we've been farming for generations. And it's, new generation farmers that are, starting doing small things. And so that's what we really do. And like dealing with FSMA and just keeping that space open for these farmers.
It's such incredible work that you've been doing. And I just, want to congratulate you and your mom for taking that on and inspiring others to hopefully do the same in their states. So, okay. So I think it's time for our lightning round. Are you ready?
Yes.
So question number 1, favorite crop to grow, cook, or eat?
I'm going to say garlic, because it actually grows beautifully here, and we grow Farmer John's garlic from Angelic Organics. So that's a really kind of fun piece. So I'm going to say garlic. I do love peppers too, because you can dry them and grow so many different varieties from so many different countries. Like everyone, I feel like, has a pepper. So those are my 2, but there you go. You got 2 instead of 1.
Okay. I can't continue until I find out, how did you get a hold of John's garlic?
Our house fire, I lost all of our seed garlic. It burnt up in our house fire. And so I messaged Farmer John and said, I need garlic. Will you send me some? And he sent me like a 30-pound box or 40-pound box of seed garlic and just gifted it to me. And so we have slowly over the years built it up until we have enough. And now it grows so well here. It is gorgeous. We get huge heads, and we've spread it around to the community. So now it's like this garlic, and he doesn't even know what variety or anything. So we're like, it's Farmer John's garlic. So
that's so great. I love that story, and how amazing that to hear about his generosity and sharing the love through garlic. So that's great. Okay, next question. Hardest part of farming?
Weather, but that one's just everyone. You can't control the weather, and it's just is what it is. But I'd say the other part is kind of being in charge, like being the leader and, like the end all, like not the end all, but making those decisions and being the one to make those and kind of being in charge can be hard.
What have you learned along your 15-year journey? Has it gotten easier or harder?
I think it's a balancing act. I think with farming and running different crews in different seasons, and I think you learn how to deal with certain things better and certain personalities for sure. But I think just farming in general can be tough, and then putting that pressure of okay, I know that I'm the one that's going to have to make the end decision, and it might not always be right, and just being okay and having grace for yourself too. I think that's a part is sometimes we beat ourselves up so much, and it's you just need to know that if you're trying to do the best that you can at running this operation, that you just have to have some grace. So
yeah, no, good answer.
Which I don't think we give ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Being a leader is very, very hard. So I hear that. Next question. Favorite tool?
Okay. There's so many amazing tools out there, but my Johnny's red harvest knife, is my standby. I can almost do anything with that. Not really, but I just have to say I'm there's so many tools, but if I had to pick them, a shovel, a Johnny's harvest knife, and a wheelbarrow, you could almost run the world with them. Not really, but
pretty close.
No. With everyone's not a PCS. I was I don't know. They're all cool, but when it comes down to it, you just sometimes the basics are just what you need.
It's very true. And there's nothing worse than a dull knife when you're harvesting. So
I know.
I hear that one.
It's efficiency and you just need it all the time. Can dig a hole okay too if you need to break into something. Chip ice off. I don't know. I've used it for a lot.
Okay, next question. Favorite music or podcasts that you listen to while farming?
Okay, so I'm not a huge podcast girl, funny enough, and I don't listen to a lot of music, but I do love, love, love reading books. So I have some books that I would say are some of my favorites right now. The Unsettling of America by Wendell Berry is really fun. I love Dirty Life. I think Kristen Kimball's just great. And her second book is great too, Good Husbandry. She just knows how to put things into words that I can't, feelings that I have into words is amazing. And then Buzz Sting Bite is another really great one. And the translation's beautiful, and it's also great on audio. So that's what I would say. Those are the ones. If I had to take 3 right now, if you told me today, those are them.
Well, that was great. And I especially like you mentioning Kristen Kimball's books. And guess what? Spoiler alert, they're going to be on the last episode of the podcast next week. So,
yay. Okay, I'm definitely listening to that one. Not that I don't listen to them, but just not when they come out. I love them. They are amazing. They're they're doing amazing things. So they've been a huge inspiration.
Well, good. Well, yes. So, and I love actually having the 2 examples of your full diet CSA.
Yes.
With theirs, both in different climates, different sizes, but a lot of crossover and a lot of similarities too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Next question. How do you turn off farming, or do you?
I would say I don't. I think that farming, I feel sometimes we turn it into a 9-to-5 job, and we try to put it into boxes, but it is so much a lifestyle. And I mean, you know this more than anyone with your dad and growing up in this community, that I think you have to find a balance, and there is a balance between work, between anything. But I think when you embrace it and just realize that it is a lifestyle and it's something that is just part of what you are and what you're doing, instead of fighting that, this is work, this is not. I think that's when you do find that balance in a certain extent. And you don't have to turn it off because it isn't something that's eating you. It's just what you're doing, and you know that it's never going to get done. You know, the work's never going to get done, and it's going to be there tomorrow, and just be okay with like eating dinner or taking a second to do something that might not be, you know, farming related, but is still in that, you know, in that space anyway.
Yeah, no, and I love how you incorporate so many of your passions and joys within the umbrella of farming.
Right.
So, you know, you have the cooking, you have the education, you have the actual farming. It's all combined. And that, you know, if that brings you a lot of joy, then it doesn't always feel like work, and you can kind of always be navigating that world. So,
I would say,
yeah. Next question. How do you define success on your farm and as a farmer?
This is a hard one, but I say how I find success, because every season is different, but it's like, are you meeting the needs of your community and who you're supporting, and the needs of the people who are working on the farm? Like, can you pay, you know, like those are the things that for me make me feel successful. Like, you know, the people that are working here, their needs are being met, and the community that we're serving, they're being met. And, you know, it's not always perfect, but that feels successful when you can like hit those marks and you know that you're doing it. Even though your crop might not be perfect, there might be weather, you know, those things like, and those things might not, but if you're meeting those needs and having that piece, I feel like it feels successful in a way.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, the prioritizing the human capital, for sure, is so important.
For sure.
Yeah. Number 7, what do you love besides farming?
Traveling to other farms. I do love traveling, but I think cooking and eating what we grow and produce is something that I really do love. And then spending time in my community, you know, like maybe it isn't farming related, but being a part of the community and doing things I think I enjoy.
Do you have any examples of specific things that you do in your community?
Well, we have a very thriving like art community. Like we have the Shakespeare Festival and things like that. And I love, you know, going and being a part of that and doing things, you know, whatever that is. I think it's important to like go off the farm and like, you know, you create such a community on your farm, and it's like so much, but like you need to go and support people in your community too, and what they're doing, whether it's concerts or activities, or, you know, like if you want it to be kind of this full circle, I feel like buying into other people's love or passions or interest and supporting them is important too. And I think that's something that I find value and love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, that's great. And then if you can combine them together and collaborate, even better.
I know, right? So,
next question. An inspiring farmer or land steward you'd want to have as a dinner guest, either living or deceased?
So this one is kind of fun, but at the same time, I feel like I have been so lucky to get to meet and have a lot of the people. Like I was looking at my list, and I was like, there's so many people on this list that I can like check off. You know, I was like, Ellie Coleman, like actually I've like made dinner for him. You know, like there's just a lot of people that I am, you know, being young and being in this community that I have had the pleasure of meeting. So I think I'm gonna have to say Wendell Berry, I still haven't met, so he's on my list. And then I am a biodynamic farmer, so I put Rudolph Steiner. I think Rudolph Steiner would be a fun one. Just like, what kind of man is he? So, and there's a new farmer I found. Her name is Eloise, and she is in Canada, and she's like 26 and she's killing it, and I want to meet her. I'm like, I want to have dinner with you. We need to be friends. I need to message her. So those are my people.
Those are great. You got the full spectrum there.
A full spectrum.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Eloise, what's the name of her farm? Say more.
I knew that you were going to ask me. Yeah. She is in Canada. It's French.
Okay.
And so all of her things, like I have to hit translate to like read them. But I think she started her farm with her dad.
Okay.
at the age of, she left school at the age of 16. And maybe this is like why I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits, and started farming. But I know that like Growers and Co sponsors her for a lot of things, and her farm looks beautiful and amazing.
Is she in France? She's in France.
Is she in France?
Yes,
I thought she was in Canada. Is she in France or Canada?
No, I think she is in France.
She's amazing.
She
is in France.
Yes, she is. I was just because I follow her too.
I would try. I found her not too long ago, and I'm like, this woman is a badass, and her farm is gorgeous, and like, I want to know who she is.
Yep. So her name is Eloise Gross, and it's La Ferme de. Let's see. I don't have my glasses on. Domongeville, it looks like, if I'm completely butchering that.
Yeah.
But yes, she is in France, and she does amazing work, and she's super inspiring. And her videos and reels that she releases are very creative. And
so she is a young and coming farmer that I think people should watch for.
I'll have to talk to you later.
And inspired too.
So she reached out to me recently, and she said she was going to do a trip to the East Coast sometime like in July, August. So I'll have to try to connect you. So anyway, okay.
Tell me, maybe I'll have to fly out there and we'll have dinner. Maybe we'll make that one happen.
Okay.
Just teasing. Okay.
No, it's good. We'll put a pin in that, and I'll circle back with you later. Okay. Next question. Okay. How do you relate to that which is out of your control?
I'm going to say I've learned to roll with it, because I've had quite a few things in my life that are not in my control, and freaking out, stressing, and trying to control them doesn't work. And so you kind of just have to like be okay and know that, you're doing the best that you can. If you are doing the best that you can, when you're not, it can be harder, but, and just kind of roll with it and keep going, just keep on chugging along, and know that you can't control things, especially in this world. So you just kind of have to have that open mindset of, this isn't the end of the world. And the sky is not falling, so we're still okay. And there's going to be another day, and, things are going to keep happening. So
good. A very wise response. Okay, next question. What do you long for, and how does that influence how you farm?
I would say I long for a thriving local food community, or I'd say community and economy. I would love to decentralize like our state, decentralize the food system in our state. I think it would be that's a beautiful dream. And I definitely think it's completely changed the way that I farm. I mean, I started a nonprofit. I spend my winters up at the legislative session. I think that I've realized that education is super important in our community, because we are kind of behind the times. And I think growing food is really important, but in a lot of ways, in our climate, like, we're the only people that grow food for a living here, right? And so, like, creating that, like, is super, super important. So, like, we've started a farmer training program, there's just a lot of things that we've done to kind of build that community, so we're not the only ones. And when you are, like, some people are like, oh, it's so nice you don't have like competition or whatever. And it's like, it's kind of like nice to have. Yes, I get it that, like, when you do have more than like a very, big community, it can be difficult too. But at the same time, it's hard to be alone. Like, it's hard to be the only one. And so I think that it has definitely influenced how I grow and what I do.
Yeah, no. And the conference that you started too, that's amazing too, because not only do you bring people together, but you educate and create a larger community.
Yeah, so, the conference is a big piece to bring that piece in, for sure.
Next question. What do you feel is your gift to give on behalf of people and the land?
That's always a fun one. I would say it kind of goes back to that other one, but I think hope to education's one, but also like hope. Like when you see, someone in an area that might not be the best, and you see them doing things and starting at a younger age, like you're like, okay, if they can do it, then I can do it, right? Like, I mean, your dad, I think, gave people a lot of hope too, like his starting out. And so I think that is something that that can be helpful, or that is something that I'm able to give, is like hopefully inspire people to do this and know that it's possible, and educating them through, what we're doing. So,
well, I think you have given people a tremendous amount of hope with everything you've accomplished in 15 years. So, yes, an abundance of hope. So thank you for that, Sara. And last question is, how will you grow old farming?
I feel like I've already grown old farming. I'm still young, but I'm like, oh my, I don't know. Growing old farming, where do you see yourself? I think part of it is just being, and farming can be so overwhelming that, like, I think honing, like, just being okay with where you are in the space that you're in is important, and looking at the future, but living in the present, I think, is very important. And, I am only 30, so I could not do, like, there could be a lot, or I'm not even 30, I'm 29. I still have a whole year. No, I'm kidding. But so much can happen or change or whatever. But I think that making sure that you're taking care of yourself and, like, the space and who you are is important if you want to be in this space. Like, burnout is a real thing. You can kind of push yourself or feel like you need to, like, take on everything. And I feel like if I want to be here in, another 40 years or whatever, that just be like living in the present, looking for the future is important. But just like being okay with where you're at and not trying to overthink it, I think, is sometimes, like, I feel like we, like, try so hard to, like, okay, what do I want in 15 years? Where am I going to be? What am I going to do? And, like, we almost, like, talk ourselves out of what we're doing now, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does make sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, it sounds like you reach this point where you want to kind of refine and, settle into what you've created and feel like you can appreciate it, as opposed to always be, like, striving for the next thing. So,
yeah. And I think that sometimes we forget to do that. And it's not that you can't, like, still do things, it's not that you're not building or creating, but I think that sometimes we're just always striving for the next thing, that we forget to appreciate what we have.
Yeah.
So,
but on that, is there anything, like, any vision or
vision?
Well,
don't get me started.
Like, can you share just, like, a little piece of, like, something you've been thinking about that you want to maybe bring into the farm?
Right. I mean, right now I'm trying to get, I have, like, plans of barns and things, but I'm also on, like, 2 acres. So I'm like, I don't know, like, long dream. I'm like, I'd love to make this, like, this piece or this space more of, like, a learning center or something that, like, people can come to, and more of, like, a community. Cause we're starting to get, like, surrounded by housing tracts too. And so, like, I would love to preserve this, like, 2 acres, kind of more, it's turning into more of an urban community. I'm like, we're an urban farm in the middle of nowhere. To, like, kind of preserve it and keep it in a space. Like, I don't know if, I'm always going to be the one that's farming in this space, but I would love to, like, keep this space for this community to always have as, like, a farm or something. I don't know if that, like, where that's going to be in the long run. Like, I would love more land, but I think I keep on, like, striving to create, like, structures and places that it could be that way. And so I think that's part of what I'm trying to do, like, not actively doing it, but in an unactive way, trying to create that, like, with zoning and, turning, like, we're talking about maybe turning like unincorporate or incorporating and creating like our own city. So then like farming and agriculture in this space can be more accessible. So I think there's like things like that I'm trying to do to like keep even these small spaces, because it's like you just see houses being built and, a house is the last thing that's ever going to be put there. Like you don't rip down houses and turn it into farmland. So I think just keeping that like open space alive, no matter what size it is important. So.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Thank you for sharing a little piece of that. And I wish you all the best luck with everything that you dream and attempt to do. And I also have to, since I'm looking at you and obviously listeners can't see you, but you have this wonderful shirt on that has carrots and radish and maybe beets. And,
yes.
I have to acknowledge the appropriateness of your outfit for this conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time. And really, I'm just so impressed with everything you've accomplished and your energy and your commitment and your passion to everything you've done in Utah and, influenced a lot of people around this country too. So thank you for all your hard work and your presence. Thank
you for being here and having this space for us to tell our stories and to listen to each other, because I think that is so important, is farmers being able to hear and share other farmers' experiences, because sometimes I think we feel like we're alone. Like it's like, I'm the only one, and it's like, oh no, you aren't.
No.
Not even close, right?
Yep, so. We're all made of strength and struggle. Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you again, and good luck with the rest of your season. Today's show was produced by me, Clara Coleman, with support from No-Till Growers. Special thank you to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Thank you to the patrons at patreon.com/no-till-growers for helping to make this show possible. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.